Thank you so much, Regina. That was very, very nice. Regina, you have an amazingly commanding presence. As a life coach, I can imagine you get some good results. In fact, I may need one soon, so we'll talk about that later. I want to thank you all for being here to this amazing organization's event. This is a great group. And I want to tell you a little bit about, as wonderful as that introduction was, one of my favorite introductions I got for a speech ever. I was speaking at a homeless conference in Detroit a few years back, and the mayor walked up. It's Kwame Kilpatrick. He'd later be indicted, but that's not part of the story. So he came up and he said, he walked up the podium, and in a real sarcastic voice, he said, "Minneapolis, the #1 city to start a small business. Minneapolis, best place for women to work. Minneapolis, more Fortune 500 headquarters per capita than any city in America. Minneapolis, #1 art city. Minneapolis, #1 bike city." And then he just sort of rolled his eyes at this crowd in Detroit that had gone through so much, and he just said, "I hate Minneapolis." And I just loved the whole introduction. But you know, the mayor forgot a couple. He should have also added to that amazing list of things that we're known for here to say that out of all of the top 20 metropolitan areas in the country, one city has the highest gap between white and black unemployment: Minneapolis. He could have said, what city has one of the largest achievement gaps along racial lines of any city in the country? And he could have said, Minneapolis. And I could go on a little bit on that. But the fact of the matter is, living in one of the greatest metropolitan areas in the country and in the world, in a global city that people recognize increasingly as a city of the future, that's going to be one of the leading lights of our country, that's going to be a global powerhouse, we have a remarkable Achilles heel in this community. And it's something that should shame us into action. It is something that is also, thankfully, at the core of the mission of Twin Cities Rise, and that is the fact that we are too often a tale of two cities. And that's not anecdotal, that's not arbitrary, that's not something that changes year to year. That is exactly who we are and exactly who we cannot continue to be. So what we need to do is to look this issue square in the eye. And I said to the group of the funders a couple minutes earlier, if somebody handed me $1, the only dollar I had, to really try to move the dial on this issue, to really try to make a change on the long-term unemployment in this community, to really make a change specifically on the issue of African-American long-term unemployment, which is at absolutely crisis levels in this community. If somebody handed me that dollar and said you can only give it to one group, I would absolutely give it to Twin Cities Rise. There is no question in my mind about it. Miracles are performed, but they are performed year after year, after class after class. And in part, one of the things about it is the leadership of this organization and the people up and down the staff recognize the fact that it is incredibly powerful to get people into a job, but it is also equally powerful to give them the skills of resiliency that will allow them to continue to keep that job and to come back from one defeat after the other. And that is really critically important. That has been more important over these last few years because the fact of the matter is our economy hasn't just cruised along at a normal level for the last few years, and it can't be expected to. We expect that there will be some real upsides. We also expect that there will be downsides, and out of that, a worker can expect that they will have challenges. And the fact of the matter is the last hired, first fired philosophy has hurt those at the very bottom. The fact of the matter is that when America gets a cold, some parts of this community get pneumonia, has hurt. And so in tough economic times, the training of resiliency that is core to the Twin Cities Rise mission is training that is essential to that day when something rough happens at the office, to that day when through no fault of your own, you no longer have the job that you thought. The resiliency that allows you to go to another job interview after you thought you would never have to go to another one. Well, the good news is there is a lot of other work going on. I see two of my colleagues here. Council President Barbara Johnson, would you stand up and give a wave, who has been a fantastic leader on these issues? Councilmember Don Samuels, who I believe is on the board here and who is deeply passionate about this work. These two partners of mine have been unwavering leaders on trying to make sure that we close the gaps that we have in this community. Now, as the introduction mentioned, we haven't been sitting quietly on the sidelines. Back in 2003, when our city began to address some very serious budget issues, and we really had to make a choice, where would we put our dollars, there was an option for the city of Minneapolis to do what most cities do, which is to say we're not going to be very involved in job training. Most cities are not involved in job training. We said just the opposite. We said we had serious budget issues, but we're going to double down and do more in employment and training. And so what we did is we took a very, very strong employment and training operation that had been independent in our health department. We fused it into a new, more powerful economic development team. We put more money in when we didn't have a whole lot. And the results are really clear. Over these last few years, 14,000 hard-to-employ people have been placed in jobs through our employment and training programs. And that is really powerful work. And at the same time, we said we are also going to make sure that we're raising a generation that recognizes the fact that they are absolutely core to our future. And so what we did is we laid out the Minneapolis Promise, career centers in every high school, and I speak to every ninth grader in Minneapolis schools and talk to them about their career track, the Step Up Summer Job Program, college access programs, including a remarkable one called the Power of You at MCTC, which is about getting kids 2 years of free college if they qualify for that. The core of that, of course, is Step Up, and as the introduction mentioned, 16,000 kids, 86% kids of color, 93% kids in poverty, 50% immigrants, have gotten into summer jobs in all the best businesses in this community. This community is doing a lot together. I am especially excited about the fact that Governor Dayton, when he came in, has been laser focused on that, and we have Katie Clark-Sieben, who is his commissioner. Katie, give a wave there. And she and I think if the other members of her team could also stand up, because I'd like you to talk to them afterwards. You're not getting out of here alone, right? The governor has come in and has been laser focused on this work, and it's very, very important. We're working together on a workforce center in North Minneapolis, which will be that one-stop shop where people can go forward and get the employment and training work. And by the way, the workforce centers that the state funds are remarkable work. I remember being in the one in South Minneapolis a few years ago, and a woman, I was talking to the people about why they were there looking for employment jobs. This woman sort of sheepishly said, you know, I never thought that I would come to Chicago and Lake and find my new career. I live in Edina, but she came there, she got great work, she's working now long term. These are core issues that they do. So I want to recommit the fact that A, the city of Minneapolis is going to continue to stay focused on this. I'll deliver my last budget this year, and it will be like every other budget. It will continue the funding for employment and training. I'll personally commit that when I'm no longer mayor, I'm staying in this community and I'm going to be deeply engaged in this work. And I really think we're in good hands with the state doing that as well. But I have to end where I started. There's no other group doing this better than Twin Cities Rise. And while a lot of people, including us, have moved large numbers of people into employment and training, nobody can look in the eye of somebody who's been unemployed for a long time, turn their perception around, turn their viewpoints, turn their skills around, and turn their life around. Nobody's doing that better than Twin Cities Rise. So you're eating a good lunch today, but more important, you're at the right place. Thanks for your great work, and I look forward to being an ongoing partner with you. Thank you very much.